go again. I've escaped. I've escaped to find somewhere quiet to do one of the things I love the best, and that's read. So today I read you one of my favourite books by a brilliant author called Anne Fine, and today I'm going to read you my second favourite, and it's a book called Loudmouth Louis. And I like the alliteration in that title, but also the fact that he's trying really hard not to say anything. And I know sometimes in class that's really tricky. When you guys come back to class, I can't wait to hear you all chatter over each other and tell us all the fabulous things you've got up to. But for now, we're going to have to make do with these stories. So I'm going to read you the blurb, and it says, "You, Loudmouth Louis Todd, stay quiet for even 1 hour." Everyone knows that Louis is a loudmouth. He can't stay quiet for 1 minute, so no one believes him when he says he's going to do a sponsored silence. But Louis thinks just for once he might be able to keep his mouth closed. Will he manage it? Well, let's see. Silence is golden. It was my own fault, I admit it. I could have been in the group that chose to organise the raffle, but I was too busy chatting to Melanie to bother putting my hand up. And I could have joined the group Miss Sparks said could run the bring and buy stall, but I was leaning across to whisper something to George, so I missed that chance too. Then Steve and Arif and Ariane finally persuaded Miss Sparks to let them run a who can have wet sponges thrown at them the longest. And I'd joined with them, but she was still mad at me for chattering in class, so she wouldn't put my name down. She just set her timer as usual. "Silence is golden, Louis Todd," she said. "If you can button your loud mouth for 5 whole minutes, I'll write your name down. And if you can't, I won't." And look at her there. I promise never to fold my arms in class again. Look how cross she looks. I couldn't keep my mouth closed for 5 minutes, so she didn't. So I was still sulking when she wrote down the names of people who wanted to do the biscuit making and guess the number of lollipops in a jar and the great big used book sale. Trouble is, I was still sulking when she asked if I wanted to join the very last group who were going to set up the fast, cheapo car wash. "No thanks," I told her. "I've got a brilliant idea of my own to make some money, and it's private." "That's nice," she said. You could tell she was pleased I wouldn't have to discuss it with anyone. "And now it's time for maths." So as I told you, it was all my own fault. Chapter 2, 50 different ways to be told to be quiet. I am the world's expert at being told to be quiet. Everyone has their own way of doing it. I know because I get it all day. In the morning, Mum stares at me blearily over the cornflakes and says, "There's no point talking to me yet, Louis. Can't you see I'm still asleep?" When we're leaving the house, Dad claps his hand over my mouth. "Hush up, Louis. Just give me a moment to think if there's anything I've forgotten." At the lollipop crossing, Mrs. Fryer says, "Louis Todd, you rattle like a stone in a tin can." The big boys in the playground say, "Stuff it," or "Stow it." In case you're tempted, I should warn you that my mother says if she ever hears me saying any one of those again, all I'll get for Christmas is a freshly spanked bottom. In assembly, Mrs. Heap says, "Is that Louis Todd I hear speaking?" Or sometimes, "I take it that what you're saying, Louis Todd, is a whole lot more important than what I'm saying, so why don't you come up here and tell everyone?" That shuts me up pretty sharpish. Back in the classroom, Mrs. Sparks says one by one through the long morning, "Stop talking, Louis. Be quiet, please. That's enough, Mr. Loudmouth. Louis, I'm speaking. Do stop distracting people. I don't recall saying you could work in pairs." At lunchtime, the dinner ladies stand right over me and say things like, "Give over prattling, Louis Todd, and finish your sponge pudding." Or, "Stop rabbiting on and eat. Can't you see we're trying to wipe the table?" After lunch, back in the classroom, Mrs. Sparks starts up again. "Don't start your nattering. I'm sick and tired of hearing your voice, Louis." I think Ben was talking. "I'll put on my timer and see how long Louis Loudmouth can keep his beak buttoned." There's the dinner ladies there. I don't think we've got anyone like that who leans over in quite such a cross way. Poor Louis. I almost feel sorry for him. "Don't interrupt me. Zip your mouth, Louis. On your own, please." When we're learning about other countries, she sometimes says it in other languages. "Tais-toi," that's French. "Callate," Spanish. Gujarati. By the end of the day, she's usually digging in her bag for her aspirins. "Louis, do you realise you give me another splitting headache?" Once, she was so fed up, she even said as I was going out the door, "I shall know when you're dead, Louis, shan't I? Because it would be nice and quiet." After all that, it's lovely to get home to Gran. Chapter 3, Worry on My Mind. Gran never tells me off for talking. Well, she can't, she's just as bad. Gran never stops. When we're together in the house, it's her voice stirring up the air, not mine. Gran even talks when there's no one to listen to her. I can walk home from school, open the door and hear her at it. So I'll just wash those dishes and get them out of the way, pet and sort out that peg basket. Oh, there's a couple of broken ones, I'll throw those straight away. Oh, have a look at that tea towel, see if it's due for a wash. Mum calls it chuntering and says that toddlers do it. Ask a small child to get dressed, says Mum, and suddenly there she's in front of you, a bulging heap that's trying to tell you things. Now I'm putting on my woolly gloves. Oops, I got stuck and it's all gone dark and I can't find the hole. Oh, and now the rest of me's stuck up and I can't find my way out. Mum says that chuntering is useful if you're learning to talk, but you should really grow out of it. Obviously, Gran's grown back into it because I've heard most things she said 8 million times before. Oh, there, now the kitchen's looking fresh and tidy. When your mum and dad get home after a hard day's work, oh, I think it's nice for them not to walk into a bomb site. But sometimes what she says is news to me. See that bald man on the front of the telly, Louis? Well, when he was young, he had lovely thick curls and looked upside down floor mop, he did. That's just what he looked like. But I wasn't interested in bald men or fresh and tidy kitchens. I'd got a worry on my mind. Gran, I said, I did something really stupid today. I didn't sign on to help with washing cars or making biscuits. Sounds smart to me, said Gran. Sit with your feet up and let other people do the work. Trouble is, I told Mrs. Sparks I've got my own idea to make money. Oh, that's good. My dance club needs some money. I hope you can help. Oh, I would. I'd share that idea, except I've not had it yet. Oh, pity. Because all of us in the dance club want to go to Blackpool and stay in the Alhambra and walk along the seafront and go to Tower Ballroom every night. And it was too late. I'd missed my chance. Once Gran stopped, when she started, she never stopped. Chapter 4, Don't Mind My Dad. I tried talking to her again. Dad wasn't listening. He was slumped on the sofa watching Leighton Buzzard Wanderers' greatest goals. Dad watches football videos for half an hour after he gets home. Gran tells him off, but Dad said if she'd had 40 little savages yelling at her all day, she'd sit around watching Leighton Buzzard Wanderers' greatest goals with him. My dad's a teacher. Did I mention that? Gran, I said, about this brilliant idea I've got for making money. She had a think. Oh, you could put lots of lollipops in a jar and make people guess to see how many they are. Someone's already doing that. Oh, shh, Dad's voice said. Here comes one of Lenny Potter's unforgettable match savers. Well then, how about setting up a great big used book sale? That's been picked too. On the television, Lenny Potter took a penalty back in the Stone Age when Leighton Buzzard Wanderers wore those old yellow shirts with purple stripes. Oh, pity about that nasty rash of his, said Gran. Shh, Dad said. Doesn't look like he's got a rash to me, I said. Oh, that was back then, said Gran, when he was young and fit. I saw him last night on Question of Sport and he'd come up in pink lumps. Dad raised his head over the sofa. Instead of joining the two of you to grieve over the poor man's skin problems, might I just be permitted to watch this famous left-footed volley from the halfway line in peace and quiet? Don't mind my dad. Like Mrs. Heap, he can be very sarcastic. Sad too about his poor wife, persisted Gran. Shh, said Dad. This is the corner kick that flew in above the great lake, wonder silver like a bird. Her big mistake, of course, said Gran, was leaving a fine man like that to marry a bear. She married a bear? Gran gave me a very pitying look and turned back to Dad. What was his name? Brian. Great lump of a fellow who wore floppy bow ties and knew a lot about furniture. Always on Antiques Roadshow, you remember? Dad huddled close to the television as Lenny Porter, now in a purple shirt with yellow stripes, booted the ball from the hot dog stand to the entrance. He'd got his fingers in his ears. Dad, not Lenny Potter. Gran, I reminded her, about this brilliant idea I need for making money for school. Dad's head came back over the sofa. What does your school need money for? For the new library. He sank back down. Oh, that's all right then. Someone like you needn't feel problems about raising money. You're never in the library anyway. Libraries are quiet places. Dad thought that was very funny. I can be quiet when I want to. And pigs can fly. He went back to watching his video. Gran could see that my feelings were hurt. You could always run a raffle, love, she said. Or a bring and buy stall. I could give you those nice socks with the Santas on to take in, since your father won't. Shh, Dad said. You're talking through that great free kick that sailed in on a perfect curve. The raffle and bring and buy stall are both being done already, I told Gran. And so is the who can have wet sponges thrown at them for the longest. People don't want wet sponges thrown at them, Louis. What people want is useful things, or nice things like homemade biscuits. She leaned over the sofa. Would you pay to have wet sponges thrown at you, Brian? No, but I'd give a lot of money to sit here in peace and quiet and watch my video. Gran didn't even hear him. I did. Chapter 5, In Training. So that's how the brilliant idea was born. Louis Todd's great sponsored silence. First, I had to get in training. On Monday, I tried to keep quiet all the way back from assembly to the classroom. I got as far as the turn in the corridor. Then Lucy said, Louis, and I said, what? 13 seconds. I had another go back in classroom. I want everyone to be quiet while I give out the measuring kits, said Miss Sparks. And that includes you, Louis. So I was quiet. 10 seconds. 20, 30. And then, I don't want that one. That one's got bits missing. 31 seconds if you're generous. That's not good. I tried again during percussion band. I reckon there'd be so much noise going around me I could rest my voice a bit. How wrong was I? First, Mr. Hambleton gave up the cowbells. Perfect silence. 10 seconds looking good. I gave the second handbell to Marissa. In silence too. 15 seconds. Then I gave the last one to Alfie. There you go. I said, cowbell, suits you. I hadn't kept counting, but it was a record. 18 seconds at most. I gave up for the rest of the class. I like percussion band, and keeping quiet when you could be hardly heard over bongos and chime bars and wood blocks and triangles is pretty much a waste of time. So I only tried again when it was time to collect up the tambourine. I didn't speak as I walked around the circle collecting them, but as I passed George, I couldn't help saying, gave an all for a jolly good rattle and shouting, Olé! So that was pretty much a waste of effort. Back to 10 seconds. On the way home, I walked by myself as far as the lollipop crossing. 42 seconds. Then Mrs. Fry said, why are you staring at your watch, Louis? Are you late? No, I said. 46 seconds. Not an impressive record. I was so fed up I walked home with Emma and talked to her non-stop about late and buzzard wanderers. Give up training for today, I thought as I walked through the door. No point in trying the same house as Gran. But I was wrong. As soon as I explained what I was doing, Gran started to root through the drawer in the kitchen. What are you looking for? Sticky tape. She held it up. Just a few inches over your mouth, love. Trust me, it'll work a treat. And so it did. And Gran came home and explained it. Dad peeled the tape off. Don't think that poor Mrs. Sparks hasn't dreamt of doing this, he said. She'd probably even be happy to pay. She'd save on aspirins, but I'm afraid it's not allowed. If I've agreed? I asked. Dad shook his head. Just forget it, son. I'm a teacher, I know. Just leave your poor teacher to dream about that silence. And he slid in his video. Chapter 16, A New Manager. When Mum came home, she found me crying at the bottom of the stairs. What's all this? Nothing, I snivelled. Come off it, Louis. Something's wrong. She pulled me on her knee and I explained about the sponsored silence and the sticky tape and Gran and not being able to keep quiet without it. Mum patted me gently. What you need now is a new manager. I wiped away my tears. What, like late and buzzard wanderers? That's right. But who? Who do you think? Said Mum. Me, of course. I'll be reading the second part of this story in part 2, Louis Loudmouth. Do you think if you were doing a sponsored silence to raise money for the library, you'd be able to keep quiet for a whole day? Just have a think. Would you be quiet through break time? How about through lunch? Lining up for assembly? Oh, how about reward assembly? That's always very exciting. Burnett News. You'll be bursting to take part. Have a think. What's the longest you'd be able to keep quiet for? And join in for part 2 of this book to see if Louis does it.